I got a couple bags of oysters and we'll just pop them in the water. My name is Joe Ports. I am the restoration coordinator with the West Road Riverkeeper. The Riverkeepers are pretty much the eyes, ears, and I guess you'd say mouth for the river. We look after it, identify problems, and once we find those problems, we work to stop them. Putting them on these docks over here, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go to the second dock.
Every fall, the state will distribute the oysters throughout the Chesapeake Bay as part of the Marylanders Grow Oysters program. What we've found is that it's best to have about a third of one of these bags per cage. That way they're light enough for you to actually handle them and pull them out and keep them clean, even after the oysters grow up a little bit. Oysters are a real keystone species, which means they're just a very critical species to have in the bay.
Now to me, that looks like it's just a shell. Can you show me where the little oyster is?
Sure. This one right here has at least one growing right there. The baby oyster is called the spat. The first job of the oyster is it will filter the water, so it pulls dirt and plants that live in the water called algae, and it'll eat the plants, and that'll make the water clearer, which is good for underwater grasses. It'll help them get light and grow, and it also just makes the water clearer. Spread them out on the bottom there, and just dropping it down until I touch the bottom. So that's the bottom right there, and then I'll pull it up a bit so that they're not resting right on the bottom, because that'll actually smother them if they're resting in mud. And then all we have to do is tie it up. The other thing is they build these reefs, which just provide fantastic structure for other animals, like crabs and rockfish and all sorts of smaller bait fish. The reefs are three-dimensional structures, so they have lots of nooks and crannies for smaller animals to hide in, which they really need to avoid being eaten by the larger things.
This is so much easier than I thought it was going to be.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly easy. So that's we make it as easy as we can, so as many people can do it as they want. We'll let the oysters grow for about a year, and that'll keep them safe from predators since they're locked up in these cages. So things like crabs will go in there and try and eat them, or big fish might try and eat them, but they just can't get in there because they're in these cages. And once they've lived in that cage for about a year, we'll go and take them and put them on a sanctuary. That sanctuary is, where that oyster will live for the rest of its life. It'll just stay there and filter water and reproduce to make more oysters.
Such a great little environment.
Another important part of taking care of your oysters is maintaining the cages. Come out to your dock once every 2 weeks at the very least, and just grab the rope and shake the cage up and down. So by shaking it, you're knocking all that sediment that'll rest on the shells and could potentially smother them, so that if algae or anything like that wants to try and set up here, then you'll knock some of that algae off, so that you can keep the cage free flowing and the oysters won't just be sitting there recirculating their own water. Because you can just kind of roll it around. That way the oysters won't grow into the side of the cage, so that'll make it easier to pull the oysters out when it comes time to return them, so that you can plant them. That's just another little tip that we've learned over the years. So it doesn't require too much work at all. And then you'll be returning all these oysters into a sanctuary so that they can live and filter the water and hopefully reproduce and bolster the oyster population throughout the bay.